It is my great joy and privilege to be able to address this assembly of the Parliament of the World Religions, and I congratulate the organisers on the choice of the theme for this Parliament, World Compassion in Action, which not only expresses the idea that all our religions seek, strive, and aspire for a more compassionate world, but is particularly pertinent in the wake of the last year and a half as we have been through and continue to go through this terrible pandemic, where we are called to show compassion not only to the bereaved, the sick, the needy, the fearful, and even those that are scared of the gifts of science that can enable us to curtail, control, and perhaps even defeat this pandemic. Our sages declare that God's name is the merciful one. And that, of course, is echoed within so many different religious traditions, perhaps the most notable of Islam, where God is referred to as Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, the all-merciful, the most compassionate. And Judaism centuries before had used the similar word, Rahmana, the compassionate one, to refer to the Almighty. And we are told that the divine qualities are the qualities which we, in our human context, have to emulate. In the words of our sages, Mahu chanun v'rachum, af ata hiye chanun v'rachum. Just as he is gracious and compassionate, so you must be gracious and compassionate. Thus, the manifestation of compassion is the way we demonstrate our awareness of the divine within us and around us. It is the degree to which we are true to our religious heritages and callings. But it is not only that, it is also a tool by which we can overcome evil, by which we can fight evil, and sometimes even triumph over it. The manifestation of compassion in evil times is something that we know throughout history. For the Jewish people, it was particularly evident at the most traumatic and tragic of epochs, during the Second World War, when 6 million Jews were murdered simply because they were Jews. But as in so many cases, at these times of darkness, one also sees some of the greatest light and some of the most noble actions. And many people who were not Jews put their lives on the line and jeopardized those nearest and dearest to them in order to save Jews. Perhaps the most dramatic example of that as a nation was Albania, where the Jewish population was saved by that nation, a Muslim nation, which was the only country which at the end of the Second World War had more Jews than it had had at the beginning of the Second World War. And indeed, within Jewish tradition, we refer to those many non-Jewish saviors as the righteous amongst the nations of the world. In more recent times, we have seen some dramatic actions. And one I give again from within the Jewish experience was when a shooter broke into a synagogue, the Tree of Life synagogue in Pittsburgh, and murdered 11 Jews at worship and wanted to do more. Indeed, on his way to the hospital in a stretcher, he was shouting out death to all Jews. And he was tended to by a Jewish nurse by the name of Ari Mala, who had not only seen the consequences of a terrible anti-Semitic attack, but naturally had reason to fear for himself. And yet he tended to this assassin. And he explained afterwards, he said, I wanted for him to feel compassion. And in those words, Ari understood one of the most important charges of our sages, one of the rabbis millennia ago who said, who is the true hero? He who turns his enemy into a friend. Of course, it can't always be done. But so often, fear and alienation is what drives violence. And when we can show care, compassion, even love for another human being who may feel unloved and therefore allows that to brood inside him and to erupt in hatred for others, we can give that person a sense of worth and enable him to see that value in others as well. Our sages also declare that God's mercies extend to all his creatures, and to be truly compassionate is not only to be compassionate to all those created in the divine image, it is to be compassionate to all that is created by the divine. That applies to the sentient world, that applies to our environment around us. The Hebrew Bible is replete with statements that declare that if you keep God's commandments, then you will have good rains, you will have productive harvests, you will have fecund produce. But if you fail to keep God's charge, then you will not enjoy those natural gifts. Maimonides, the great sage, religious rationalist of the 12th century, couldn't understand these texts literally. For him, they had to be metaphors of consequences to our actions, but phrased in language that even the simple farmer could understand. Today, we can see the importance of the literal understanding of these charges as never before. We see the eruption of devastating forest fires, of terrible floods, of natural disasters on a scale heretofore inexperienced. These are surely, in no small measure, the consequences of our failure to be compassionate in our lives, caring for the vulnerable within human society, but also caring for the consequences upon the natural world. And in the end, if we have no natural world, no home, we have no future. So the call for compassion is a universal call to humanity, to the sentient world, to the creation at large. And may we be the generation that can show how we can turn enemies and threats of all kinds into friends and into sources of productivity and peace for all humanity and for all our world. God bless you all.